What's up, my beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of the See It Through My Eyes channel. I'm your host, Richie, here with Chewy, my cameraman slash editor.
Hi.
This is Richie and Chewy in the evening. And today we're going to be flying just us two. Our Kika and Ian are on commission.
Today we are a party of two.
Yeah, that's right. The two sexiest voices you're ever going to hear on air.
Yes.
Too much excitement.
Oh.
So today we're going to be reacting to a video. As I've mentioned and shared a little bit in the past, I have a background in social work. So this video in regards to why Gen Z seem to have more issues when it comes to mental health. So the channel is called the Dr. Josh Axe Show. And the title of the entire video is called Why Gen Z Has the Poorest Mental Health in any generation. So we're going to be only reacting to a couple parts of the video. So if you want to check out the entirety, go check that out. Check out the channel. I might not agree completely with everything and of his points, but there are some things that I think are kind of valid to argue or at least discuss about when it comes to mental health. So disclaimer, me and actually, no, I think you are Jesus. I think you are Gen Z.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I'm millennial. I'm 1994. Jesus is 1996. So not too far off, but Jesus, you also have a little bit of experience, right, in the field of mental health.
Yes.
As well as us, our personal experiences and struggles with mental health. So that's all we're going to do today. This is not debunking any theories or debating or arguing this or that. So it's just going to be our opinions. But like I said, before we start, please subscribe if you haven't. Check out our channel, our videos. I bet you that you will find some of the stuff that we have been recording pretty interesting. We have a variety of videos for your different likes. And speaking of likes, make sure you hit that like, share, hit that alert button, that notification button, bell, to make sure you are notified anytime that we upload videos. We upload twice a week, right, Jesus?
Yep.
And also check us out on our social media pages, which will be dropping in at the end of this video. But like I said, go check out the entirety video, check out the channel. With that being said, let's get right into it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Dr. Josh Axe Show. I am your host, Dr. Axe, and each and every week on this show, we explore the science and principles behind how to grow in body, mind, spirit, and take your health and your life to the next level. On today's episode, we'll be talking about a crazy trend of the poor mental health of Gen Z and how it compares to other generations, and also get to the number one thing contributing to mental health issues, depression, anxiety, identity issues in society today. And also in today's episode, I'll be breaking down this massive increase. What are the causes and exactly what you can do about it to take your joy, your mental health, and your life to the next level?
Do you feel depressed?
Right now, talking about it, yes.
I mean, with everything going on, that makes sense.
Yeah. I personally struggle with depression on a pretty daily basis, anxiety as well. I think, like I said, we're gonna get as we get into it, I'll kind of give like my opinion about some of the stuff, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to share that.
Fair enough.
So over the past 50 years, and specifically over the past 10 years, we've seen issues that I've covered on the show before continue to increase. Issues like hypothyroid diagnosis, childhood obesity, testosterone levels plummeting in men. All of those things have continued to grow, but what's probably outpaced any health issue in recent years has been mental health issues with Gen Zers. In fact, Gen Z reports by far having the worst mental health of any generation. In fact, listen to this, 42% of Gen Zers have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. I want you to think about that for a moment. 42%, almost half of this population has a mental health disorder. And only 15% of Gen Z said their mental health was actually good or their well-being being excellent. 70% of teens say that anxiety and depression are significant problems among their peers, according to Pew Research. Now, you can see here on these charts how this has continued to look over time. Over the last 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by the following problems? This was a recent survey done here by a large organization. They found, how often do you feel nervous, anxious, or on edge? Well, for Gen Zers, it's 61% of the time, millennials, 53% of the time, Gen X, 40%, and baby boomers, only 28% of the time. So you're seeing a massive, massive difference between that population. Another one, feeling depressed, 42% of, as I mentioned, Gen Zers are feeling depressed, hopeless, or down on a regular basis, every couple of weeks at least, having these feelings. You can see Gen Z, millennials and Gen X very similar, and then baby boomers very low again. And then here's another one that just breaks my heart. Thoughts that you would be better off dead, or thoughts of hurting yourself in some way. 18% of Gen Zers on a regular basis believe they would be better off dead or think about hurting themselves on a regular basis. 10% millennials, 6% of Gen X, and 2% of baby boomers.
What do you think of the stats?
I want to first start with, this is has always been my opinion when it comes to statistics. You're not asking the entire world.
Right.
You're only going to be at, a group of people that you're asking, and then from there you do your little multiplications and divisions and all that. So I always take it with a grain of salt that, the numbers are obviously going to look a certain way depending on the group of people that they're asking.
Right.
So I don't, similar to like a lie detector in court, like I don't take statistics. It's still pretty alarming, right? I think there's a couple things that I feel people, depending on whatever their agenda or their argument is, they seem to ignore on the side that might argue why, that there's more valid reasons why maybe Gen Z or the younger generations seem to struggle with mental health. I feel one thing that they seem to avoid speaking about, right? Maybe they walk on eggshells because they feel that, it's a pretty sensitive topic, and they don't want to dismiss or victimize or victim blame anybody. But I do feel that to a certain degree, it becomes a trend, as messed up as it sounds. And I'm speaking from experience, both from high school, well, honestly, from high school mostly, where there were individuals, whether they were my friends or not, that almost seem to glorify having some sort of mental health problem, whether it was a serious disorder or just depression, mostly depression. And no, it wasn't always the emo kids, the goth kids. I didn't really hang out with those crowds. And then on the other side of the argument, people who argue why some, will criticize a little bit more, like the younger generations. I feel one thing that they avoid to mention, back in the day, there was a stigma behind identifying or admitting that you were struggling with some sort of mental health, right? Just because you didn't say that you were struggling with it, that doesn't mean that people weren't depressed. That's why you see nowadays, like, the older generations, as older as they get, not everybody, but a lot of the time you do see bitterness. Why is that? It's not just, oh, well, with age, it just comes out of nowhere. If we're so happy, then wouldn't we age with grace? Why do we have, the older generations that seem to have a more bitter outlook when it comes to the younger generations? You get me? Like, I don't know if you're following like my argument or my
I can get where you're coming from, because I think that's just I think that's just something that happens. I think every generation before the current generation is going to have some, like, maybe envy or anger or resentment towards that generation. I think what was interesting on that chart was the fact that the baby boomers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They registered at 2% and having like a mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of thought like, damn, I didn't expect it to be that high. Like 2%, like that's kind of crazy considering that how much pushback they give to like mental health and stuff like that. Sometimes, you know, I just found it really interesting.
And even with the mental health stuff, I'm not saying one is, more severe than the other,
Right.
to a certain degree, right? But something like a more standard form of depression, seasonal depression, occasional depression, anxiety, stuff like that. That's a little bit more, I don't know. You can treat it, not necessarily with medication, like those type of cases, compared to something like um, BPD, right, bipolar depression, or some sort of like borderline or personality disorder, a disorder versus that. So I kind of wish that they would have differentiate when they refer to like mental health, like what exactly are they talking about? Are they talking about people who have more mood related mental health problems? Because that can literally apply to, honestly, the majority of people.
I think it's just with that sample size, they're referring to how many diagnoses of like how many people have been diagnosed as having like a mental illness or struggling with their mental health. And I think the fact that he says again it's like it's at 47% for
42.
for was it 47 or 42?
42.
42. Okay, so being that high,
It is.
right, half of the board is that generation. And it's like, again, like you got to wonder why.
So we're gonna give more thoughts, but as we go along. So continue.
Now, you may wonder, well, what is the connection here? Well, let me go over one more chart here first. Here's another, just the trend you can see here in mood disorders. You can see here where Gen Zers are, a steep incline over just in recent years. And then also you can see there pretty stable, hardly changing at all for both millennials and baby boomers there, and Gen Xers, all kind of the same. Here's the reality. Mental health issues used to be sort of taboo, but now it's everywhere and everyone is talking about it. In fact, here's the thing that's really scary. It's almost become trendy and cool to have a mental health disorder. It's sort of like, if you want to be part of the popular crowd, well, hey, having a mental health issue is okay. And we're condoning people who have serious identity issues or mental health issues as actually just being, hey, something that is something that's trendy and popular today. So we're having young people try and sort of fit in with that group. It's almost like if you don't have a mental health issue, you're not normal. This is good for promoting awareness and reducing stigma, but leads to the sensationalizing and romanticization of mental health issues. And, TikTok is the worst of all this. And then other platforms aren't that great either, including Instagram. But TikTok trends and other social media platforms have absolutely fueled this. So again, the one common denominator when you look at what are the biggest things causing mental health issues, I believe number one is the rise in social media use. Now, I also think a lot of this has to do with parenting. If you're a parent and you're constantly coddling, enabling your kids, making their life too easy, they become weak. If you make someone's life too easy, you make their life, you weaken them mentally, you can weaken them physically. And so we need to do hard things in order to become strong.
Okay. So I want to tread lightly on agreeing with them, because as the video goes along, I'm going to start disagreeing with some of his points. But so far, I agree that people who maybe don't have a disorder compared to somebody who, does feel empowered to open up about their struggle, there are unfortunately people who are copying that, or at least maybe they do have some sort of mental health problem, but because, I don't know, in their minds, I guess it seems cool to. I feel like maybe it's kind of like
Is it
like the torture soul. right? Like in a movie or TV show, the tortured soul is admired and all that.
Yeah.
And I feel in culture it tends to do this. Something as small sometimes as we saying like, oh, you're crazy, or oh, I must be bipolar, or oh, stuff gets dropped and thrown around so easily that somebody that actually is struggling with some sort of psychosis or some sort of bipolar depression, they take that very serious because their struggles, it's that severe, it's that serious. But to us as a society, whether or not you struggle with some sort of depression, we throw some stuff around. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially on TikTok where you see a lot of these stupid trends, people using it as an identity. Because I've, like I said earlier, I saw that growing up, and I come from, I went to high school 2009 to 2013, and I saw cases of that. So I can imagine that it like multiplied more as time has gone on with the next generation.
Are you speaking about like making like self-diagnosing,
Like
but
glorifying,
then, like making your mental illness your personality?
yes, but I'm also glad that you brought up the diagnosing part. Like I said, I ain't no psychologist, psychiatrist, or therapist. I have an associate's degree in social work, so but it's vague things that I've worked in, right? But I have some knowledge. But one thing that I remember, one of my professors drilling in me, not to be diagnosing people just off of like, oh, you talk to that person, oh, they must have some sort of like psychopathy or
And even then, when you get into the actual field, you're not allowed to do that.
well, you have to
all,
go through a whole fucking process.
Right.
And unfortunately, people nowadays, they self-diagnose, or they'll just like willy-nilly diagnose somebody. Oh, well, especially narcissism. Like you hear that thrown so much around that it's starting to just, it's taken away like its validity. Like whether or not somebody is narcissistic, because we're all narcissistic, right? Let's just use that as an example.
To a certain extent.
Yeah,
right?
we all are narcissistic. Obviously, there's some people that fucking
that are more.
Take it to the max. Yeah. But it's just, I wish that we were a little bit more careful because that's somebody's struggle.
Right.
You get me? And we tend to minimize like the severity, and I feel like that is a couple factors into why we're seeing so many spikes. And again, I'm not in the field, and obviously every person that works in the field will operate completely different. It's not just a one type of way of doing things. And you're gonna see a little bit later on in the video some few cases that I kind of want to bring up, but that's kind of all I got for right now.
I know he mentioned like parenting.
Oh yeah.
What that has to do with this generation, and he says that
The coddling.
The coddling. What do you think that is
Yes.
affecting the generation more?
Yes. I've seen way too many examples in person and online of cases where like little kids, can be disrespectful, or what are they called? The kids with that have technology.
iPad kids?
Yeah. Like back in the day, I'm to date ourselves, like I got my first phone when I was like 15.
Right.
Till then, we still had a house line. You got me? Like, and yeah, other kids had like their little Blackberries and all that shit. That's how.
Because as someone who has siblings that are within the age range, and especially like who has an 8-year-old, right? I've seen some of the effects firsthand, where it's like sometimes the parents, I think this is what really bothers him personally, like the creator of the video, where it's like the coddling is basically the parents giving the child the tablet, and that's it. They leave them with the tablet for like hours on end, and then it's like when they have to take away the child's tablet, right? The child starts throwing a tantrum. Like you guys can like look this up. I might insert like a clip of this, but it's like for a while on TikTok there was a trend where the parents would record the reaction of the child getting their tablet taken away or being told no, that they can't use their tablet, and the amount of tantrums that these kids would throw over those tablets.
Give me the iPad.
It was it's ridiculous. Or phones too. Phones too. Let's not just limit it to tablets. But no, yeah, I think that if he is alluding to that being the coddling and parents just not parenting, then maybe I'd agree with him. I know he said something in there about like it being it's making them weaker. In which cases I do kind of agree with that too. Where it's like it's not making them have as much like tough skin and stuff like that, because it's like, oh, everything's offensive and everything gets to everybody, you know. And I don't think it has to be like that.
As somebody who has children close to him, we're gonna put it at that. I do think discipline, and no, discipline doesn't just mean physical discipline,
Right?
but a sense of being stern with kids at a very young age is very important. And whether or not, and I'm speaking just from this experience, whether or not the parents are together to hold a strong united front is very important. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, whether it's a two-parent household or they're separated or a single parent, I've seen cases in all those three areas where kids can be coddled, and whether it's, oh, well, my parent raised me, you know, yelling at me and with aggression and violence, I don't want to repeat that cycle, or like what you were mentioning, the laziness, or even the third one, because you kind of brought it up, these parents that care more about social media attention and they make it into content. That's crazy, dude. Because I bet you in a lot of these cases, they put these kids up like, hey, when I hit play, I want you to, I'm going to take the phone away from you and I want you to react, because that's going to get the views.
Or sometimes they just genuinely just take it away from them in that moment. And you're seeing like...
Yeah, but I mean, why have the camera?
But yeah, why
you got me? Like, it's just, it's too staged to me. I'm not saying that those brats ain't acting like that. But brats are made. They, kids will come out with their personalities and evolve. Like, we all went through that.
Right.
But if you don't have parents or a parent that's like, hey, you're not going to do this, or, and start at a young age. Because then by the time that, it's going to be harder by the time that you try to do that. Like, let's say when they're already in middle school or worse, in high school. And that is a fail on the parent. I know that a lot of the time, I know a couple people, single parents and two household parents, or two-parent household, I mean, that they work the entire day.
Right.
So, they're off, they're tired, they want to relax. But a lot of the time, their way of relaxing is getting on social media. So what do they do with the kid that, wants attention? Here's the iPad, here's the phone. Leave me alone for a couple hours.
Yeah.
You get me? Like, I don't know. Like, every situation, one thing that I hate is for people to generalize that that's always the case. Every case is going to be different. But a lot of the cases that I've seen where the kids are put in front of a screen and neglected in that form, and the coddling is those examples, and I've seen them way too many times. But I don't want to just say, well, that's every case. That you got me? Like,
right.
Anything else before we continue?
No.
Now here's the normalization. You can see here some of these pictures regarding mental health issues. Look at the slogans on this clothing. Hot girls take Lexapro, live, laugh Lexapro, bring a touch of cuteness to your decor and take, 100 milligrams of this drug. There's a throw pillow that says Prozac 20 milligrams. This is not like a cheap dollar store pillow. This is from Bergdorf Goodman. Okay, so they're really promoting these along the amongst the wealthy. Normalization of mental health issues. We've seen this in iPhone cases, like it's saying just take a Xanax or hot girls go to therapy. I mean, the reality is culture is promoting, glorifying, and even praising mental health disorders rather than encouraging people to become mentally strong.
Okay, so before he gets into the therapy, because that is where I'm going to start disagreeing. I find this disgusting. This trend and the fact that people are producing that shit, and that's what I mean. Like people are making merchandise with these like slogans, and our society is just okay with it. I've bringing awareness, like as somebody who's also been on medication, bringing awareness I think is very important, and not to demonize, right, somebody struggling with some sort of mental health. I think it's very important to do that, but this is not celebrating the care of mental health. This is celebrating mental health problems. Like if that should be a badge of honor. You get me? Like and this, where you're profiting by sending messages that it's cool to be on this type of medication. Again, for people who are on this type of medication and who don't want to be on this medication, it's not funny. It's not cool. For me, I struggled for years being on medication, on antidepressant, on anti-anxiety medication. It wasn't fun for me. It wasn't a badge of honor to be like, hey, I'm on this meds or I'm on this meds. So that, to me, I find it so disgusting. I'm not surprised. Our society is so up in that way, but it's what do you think?
Yeah, I think it is pretty messed up. There are other like facets of life that have gone to like advertising and stuff like that too, beyond mental health too. Certain situations in life. I remember this is not related to like the mental health, but I remember an aunt of mine gave me a shirt from Christmas, and on the shirt it says, "I can't breathe." It was a reference to George Floyd, and I thought to myself, I don't know where she got this. I don't know who made this. I don't know why it was made. But since then, it's interesting to see just advertising swing in the direction that it has. And it's capitalizing on a lot of messed up stuff.
Now, the U.S. has reached its absolute peak in mental health issues, but also therapy sessions. And most people think, well, hey, if I have a mental health issue, I should probably go to therapy. The reality is, though, it might be making you worse. I want to watch this clip with you. It's a very short clip here, but one of the world's leading experts when it comes to the study of mental health. Watch this with me right now for a clip from the Joe Rogan show.
I never considered that thinking about your problems all the time and talking about your problems all the time literally make the problems grow.
That's right. I mean, it's the number one symptom of depression is what they call rumination, this pathological obsessing over your pain.
Yeah.
That's why stuff like exercise, that's one of the reasons, aside from chemical reasons, one of the reasons that doing anything, you know, that running errands is good for your mental health, getting out of your house and accomplishing anything is good for you. But sitting around talking and thinking about your problems, that's a bad habit. And the best cognitive behavioral therapists and others, you know, the dialectical behavioral therapists, the ones who do really well with depression, the first thing they do is try to break that bad pattern. But a lot of therapists just indulge it.
Wow, that is so good and so true. This thing we call rumination, where you're essentially sitting in your bad feelings. It's a bad habit. If you are constantly thinking about how bad you have it, how much you're suffering, basically living in a victim state, it's going to ruin your life. It's going to ruin your mental health. And what's happening today is we are telling kids, hey, go to therapy. They're going to a therapist talking about their problems and how bad they have it over and over and over again. And the therapist is just sitting there listening and saying, yeah, you do have it really bad. That's really rough. Basically just, encouraging them. Now, listen, obviously the psychologist and myself and many others believe and know that we have to be able to talk about our feelings. We have to be able to express ourselves and feel heard and understood. But also there's a point where we have to say, you know what, life isn't about me. And also realize that if by focusing on yourself constantly and your problems, it will only make you worse. Now, I'll tell you from running a functional medicine practice for years and taking care of tens of thousands of patients, one of the things that I discovered in taking care of people with everything from Lyme disease to autoimmune disease to chronic pain is that those patients who over-focused on their condition wouldn't heal as well. They would stay almost as if they were on a treadmill and wouldn't be able to move forward with their lives, versus those people saying, hey, you know what? I've got this issue right now, but I'm going to do everything I can to be solutions focused to help it. And then I'm not just going to sit in it constantly. I'm going to go out there and do everything I can to focus on others, serving others, live my life despite of some of the restrictions right now. Those people healed at a much greater degree. So whether you're struggling with an actual physical ailment or a loss in life or some sort of other issue, it doesn't benefit you to ruminate on the actual issue you're having. You, rather than being problem focused, you want to be solutions focused. Think about this. If you have a problem in life and you just keep focusing on, I've got this problem, this thing not going my way, and that's what you focus on, you're not actually focused on fixing it, versus you saying, okay, you know what? I feel like I know I'm depressed right now. I feel like my life isn't, people are maybe mean to me sometimes, or I didn't get this job raise, or school is hard right now. And you sit in that and like, okay, there's a problem, versus, saying to yourself, you know what? Well, why do I feel depressed? Why do I feel anxious? Oh, well, it's because I'm not spending time with people. It's because, I still have this relationship issue with my mom and I need to go and ask for forgiveness. Oh, I'm not using my gifts and talents to better the world. I'm not contributing to society, and then going out and pursuing doing those things. That's how you actually get to the root of the issue and start to improve your mental health. The reality is, if you want to best support yourself and Gen Zers at improving mental health, there has to be a balance between love and self-discipline. There has to be a balance between, hey, I understand you're hurting and that's very hard, but also that's life. And if you want to reach your optimal level and live the best life possible, when those sort of things happen or you have those feelings, you just need to be solutions focused and go out there and do everything you can to live the best life possible. Hey, you're going to have haters in life. You're going to have negative trolls on social media. This is a hard thing you're going through, but you know what? You're powerful. You're strong. You're bigger than this.
Okay. So on to the therapy part. So again, he has his practice and experiences. So I'm not gonna dismiss or downplay like his work. Like I said, I'm no expert myself in the field of social work. However, I think there's a valid point, but to basically generalize that all therapists work like that, I disagree 100% with that. Are there professionals who do shit like that, who put profit over trying to help people? Yes. Every therapist, counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist will work differently. I've worked with different psychologists and therapists and counselors. I've also have seen as I worked in the field, but also I've talked to other people who have also worked with different, and everybody obviously will look for a different type of like therapy or counseling, right? Some people prefer a more interactive type of counseling. Some people would prefer someone to just stay quiet, listen, let them do all the talking, and then wrap up at the end. So I don't agree with the fact that every therapist, every counselor just tells you, you have a, you're so right. No, I work with a therapist myself, and we can validate, right, that the way that you feel about the situation is valid, but what are you going to do about it? So I agree with the other part that he says about the, what do you call it? The rheumatoid?
The rumination.
Rumination, there you go. Yeah. Yes, I 100% agree with that. If you stay in that place and you're just not crying, but if you're dwelling, if you're dwelling on how bad things are, how you don't have control, and then you start the negative self-talk and just all that, yes, obviously your life is not going to change. Obviously things are not going to change, because the way that your perspective and the way that you're seeing things and you're talking to yourself is not changing either, right? If what he was saying about the example, somebody's mean to you,
right?
You can focus on, oh my God, people are so mean, or you can focus on, how did it make me feel? What can I do to you only have control over how you feel.
Yeah.
right? But if you're going to be constantly just oh, this is confirmation that life sucks, that the world is, everybody in the world are assholes, everyone hates me, all that, just, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be living in bitterness. You're going to be living in depression, right? But I like I said, and I said this earlier, I tread lightly when it comes to the generalization that every case, every situation, every therapist, every counselor, every person that's struggling with these issues, or at least, are claiming that they're struggling, are all doing the same thing, because it's a case by case situation. Are there people that do live like that and do want to be like that? Yes, there are, right? I've come across people that prefer, and it's almost like they get a kick out of living in bitterness and negativity. And it's sometimes because I've been there, right? It's sometimes it's easier because it's the known.
Yeah.
The unknown, obviously, practicing new self-talk, like that's something, and I'll do a video later on about the effects of positive self-talk, and how after a while practicing it and being consistent with it, it does change. Does it change everything that you're going through? Absolutely not. Does it change the way you start viewing yourself, life, the world around you? Yes. So I 100% agree that if you stay and you focus on how everything is happening to you, you are going to stay there. But that doesn't mean, like I said, that everybody, every professional works like that. It's disgusting, right?
Yeah.
The fact that there are people in the medical field and the social work field that do put profit versus trying to help out people. But that's like anything in this life, right? Take something like religion. There's people out there using the word of God or whatever higher power to do horrible things. And there's people out there with doing the same thing, except they're doing it for something good. So I'm not surprised, and I feel we shouldn't be generalizing, because in anything in life, you're gonna have your good and your bad. But to basically make it that therapy, talking about your problems, is a bad thing, no. Staying there, repeating the same thing again and again and again and again, at some point you need to stop talking and get up and do something about it and move. I do agree what he said also about picking up, or the psychologist on the podcast was saying about more physical activities, or at least getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of that mindset that we end up getting stuck in, is very important, right? If you're stuck in a tunnel, what the are you planning to do? Expecting, if you're trying to find the light, you have to get out. But if you just prefer or decide to stay there, then what do you expect to happen? You're going to be stuck in the tunnel. What do you think?
I think he's completely right about the ruminating part,
Mm.
because again, like, it's a cycle, right? And I've also been there too, where I've been just constantly stuck on this one negative thing. And at the end of the day, it's like, personally, to me, how I figured this out was just, when I'm stuck on something mean, I try and do something for like someone else, whether it is like helping them with something or just being nice, in general, because I feel like that helps a lot too.
Oh, yeah.
Because you take out the bad part and replace it with something nice, which I think ultimately is what you're supposed to do, even with like your self-talk,
Mm-hmm.
right? How you talk to yourself. You eventually, the idea is supposed to be that you replace that negative self-talk with something positive, in order to like help you not like ruminate and stuff like that. And I have like such a like another point where it's like, this is the weird problem that I see with like all these like alpha males and whatnot, where they tell you that you have to separate yourself and stuff like that. You have to isolate yourself in order to succeed. Where I think that would be the opposite, honestly. Like, the only way you can be happy in life is by like being a part of a community, being more than yourself.
I hear what you're saying and I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's by choice, obviously, right? Like
Right.
you have introverted people who prefer to be on their own and they're happy being by themselves.
Right. I'm not saying
Right?
that there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that.
I agree though. If you think that you're going to fix whatever's going on in your life by just completely shutting out the world, we're creatures that we seek socializing, right? We want to be in a well, most of us want to be in relationships, want to have friendships, want to have good relationships with loved ones. Now obviously everybody's situation is different, so it's going to depend how successful people are in those areas. And I agree that a lot of, especially nowadays, a lot of these quote unquote alpha males are promoting also that more toxic mindsets that I think to a lot of individuals does lead them also to feeling isolated, to feeling depressed, to feeling insecure, because you're not addressing the root cause of whatever is going on. And I think you could do both, right? You can address whatever is happening and then also decide, okay, I need to do something about it. Instead of just, okay, so I'm not feeling okay. Let me just sit here and not do anything about it. No, that's not productive. And that's not going to get your ass up and moving. And there is people, unfortunately, who do that, right? Let's call it coddling in society,
Right.
and enabling, like, oh, you feel bad, oh, you poor thing, it's everybody else's fault. And look, depending on whatever is happens, whatever the situation is, maybe it is other people's fault, but it's your responsibility at the end of the day what you're going to do. No one else is going to make you feel better. No one else is going to come and change your life. Right. So I think both things, I wish he would have kind of phrased it a little bit different. You can validate how you feel, but how you feel, that doesn't mean you have to stay there. That's not an excuse to remain in that state of mind, in that emotional state as well, and that physical state, because you're not going to move anytime soon, and things are just going to keep life is going to happen. Life is going to life, right? Shit's going to keep happening. Shit is going to keep coming. So you do have to you kind of have to pick up your shit, do whatever you got to do, keep moving, because guess what? Something else up ahead is going to come. And if you're just waiting for it to happen, guess what? It's going to start piling up and piling up and piling up. And your perspective of life is going to be even more bleak of just, oh, life sucks. And there's shit in life that we don't have control of, and shit in life that is not the most preferable, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of beauty out there, as corny as it sounds. But if you prefer to keep the perspective of only focusing on the negativity, whether it's in yourself or others, then again, what are you expecting the results to be?